All right, y'all, this is going to be a studio tour, and I did a shorter version of this, and it seemed like people really enjoyed it. And I always like watching people's videos about their supplies, and I actually think it reveals more about the process and the thinking behind an artist and their intention. Um, I am heavily acrylic based. I do dabble in oil, but I love the flexibility of acrylic paint and its ability to blend with other mediums. And that includes color pencils, even, but inks and washes and all sorts of texture. And we're going to dive into that on my channel a little more. But first, I want to show the material that I use to get some of my results. Of course, I can't show all of it because there is an element of mystery to art. There always is. It can't just be generated. Sorry. But that's the fun. So we're going to tinker with these supplies, and we're going to be chemists, and we're going to learn how to paint uh, in a way that isn't just with paint, if that makes sense. So thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy. Okay, so if you follow me 2 steps this direction, it's going to be where I do my work now. And I've recently moved and had to get set up a little differently than I'm used to, but I really like how I did it. And so get a fuller view, and of course the paintings in the background. And now part of the move is because I just had a baby, and that's been a lot of fun, but that's also maybe me being so sleep deprived. But he's a joy, and I'll talk more about that later on. But so as we see here, we have the wall of paint. And I've been doing more videos with this painting here, so check those out. So this is funny. This is so I could paint at night and not interrupt my wife. It points the light in such a way that I'm able to like paint on the illuminated canvas and it be dark around me. A little studio trick there from my mass communication time. Of course, we got the CMYK cube. And we got the business card, which I like. I need to update it though. It's a little dark, but that's fine. Behind here is all the challenge coins, and maybe I'll do a show and tell of those one day. This thing I love, and this is just off of Amazon, just acrylic art supply holder. And if you go through each drawer, it's like these are brush pens here, which I'm a big fan of. And that's sort of the multimedia or mixed media expression I like to use with acrylic, is being able to use these things. The caveat to that is you have to seal them properly when you're using different mediums, but that's a lesson in itself. So different blue inks. Now mostly I use this for storage for my secondary paints and smaller tubes and things. And in here are different gouaches and things. So this one is like a ultramarine glitter. And of course I found this in Japan. I think you could order them because I looked recently on Amazon, but there's all sorts of unique gouaches I like to use. Oh, this is like a black pearl, things like that. And this is a U35 paint from Japan. It was one of my favorites when I was there. I've looked on the website to try and order more, but I think they might have discontinued it in favor of other items. Hopefully it comes back. Right now I use Liquitex, of course, the heavy body. So yeah, in here is all mostly paint, but then there's like pencil sharpener supplies, erasers, I've always found it hard to find a good pencil sharpener, and I've settled on just the classic metal or the X-Acto school one down here. Pretty good though. Oh, and that's patches. I didn't really have a place to put those, so I just hide them underneath. Hope you guys get some, maybe some minimalist inspiration from this, and that like you don't need a huge studio to get a lot done. And I work on big paintings. These are black ink, the microns, the classic. There's some few variations, felt tips, things like that. Maybe some ASMR. Yeah, oh, of course, the Prismacolor black one. Those are just thicker markers. These are essentially like the Poscas, but a Japanese brand, or maybe not a brand, but this is where I got them. These are juice paint. I treat them the same, but I use them a little less. It's super quality paint. I just, maybe I like to hold on to them, so I don't use them as much. And of course, we got these bad boys. And I got this as a custom, the Copic markers as a custom, like, match your own set. It was kind of pricey to do it, but Japan's so big on that artwork. I was able to, they let you, at the art supply store, like, get the case and then match to the markers you want, which is awesome. I love these, but I don't use them too often. Maybe I will. These are all Prismacolors, which I am reintroducing into my material palette curiously, because they're actually really versatile with acrylic if you know what to do with them. Maybe I'll do a little example because it's hard to explain. Like for shading and like layering, and it's really interesting what I've stumbled on. These are Steedler pens. Same thing, I use them for detail work. I could use them more. But these are for extra supplies. Then up top is more of the things that I'm using all the time or I need within hand's reach, because I stand here and then I look over. And these are like my favorite, and they're pretty cheap, and they're just brush pens. They're not Japanese, but I found them in Japan, even though it has a little, they're just like calligraphy brush ink pens. I'm always using them, and I just found out they have a sepia toned one, which I'm using all the time now. Because sometimes, you know, it's good to not just use black, or if you need it to layer on colors, it's super convenient. Here's some fun stuff. This is from Culture Hustle, the little sign, pink powder. Powders are fun, just to make custom pigments and things. I just bought that on a whim. Or not on a whim, I ran out of my favorite from them, which is this blue paint of a particular luxury type. I'm not going to say it, but I love this though, and so I had to buy some more. Soft body, and then some soft body pink for flesh tone, and then this is just transparent mixing white. Different acrylic mixing mediums, that's glazing, slow dry, and the matte medium. And these are cool. I'm using the slow dry more. I haven't quite, glazing is okay, but there's so many ways to glaze. Oh, of course, and then this is the matte super heavy gel, and this is awesome. I'll show you the, actually I won't show you because I set it somewhere else across the room, but I have a different version of this. It's just a different brand look to the branding, because I got it overseas. Okay, so now we'll move on to this. And we got the elephant painting on top, which I love. Normally I keep the favorites around me while I'm working to remind myself of like what I'm capable of or the style I like. Um, and to skip over to this again, this is like a really early painting, and my signature is all different. But I love this one, and I think it was one of the paintings I did that, and it's Mount Fuji, but it was before I was in Japan, ironically, and it kind of told me, it felt like it told me that I was capable of more as an artist, and it felt so like pure when I finished it, and it's just a little painting I keep next to me. So here is the wall of paint, and here's my ribbon rack from my Navy service. Sharpshooter there, and we got the Battle E on my ship, and good conduct, because I was a good boy back then. Rifle, I was okay with the rifle. I was Surf Alpha, but yeah, 4 racks is pretty good. And for a petty officer. So here's the wall of paint. And this, I love that I did this, and I'm going to keep this set up forever probably, this whole like framed thing going on. It's just a cork board I found on Amazon. If anyone's really interested, let me know and I'll put links in, like to each supply and stuff like that. But I mostly use the heavy body Liquitex. And I have the Winsor Newton, but I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the tubes, the metal, because they crinkle and then sometimes they split. So I need to use them up. Here's some Artist Loft. That's good too. Some leftover Japanese. You could see the kanji. And some U35 gold, which is really transparent. And lately I've been going and using golden gouache as my gold for acrylic or gilding, but sometimes I don't always like to gild. I'll do it. I mean, it depends on the nature of the painting if it calls for it. Maybe I'll go through some of the colors as well. So Sap Green Permanent is a really good green that's more natural looking than say like the this one here, or some of like the emerald green, and yeah, these are great too, but this one I think just has a nice tone for nature. And indigo is another favorite of mine. So normally you have the blues, which are like this blue here, which is really transparent. This one I find, even though it says, see it says a little symbol, it's half transparent, half opaque, like 50%. I find it really opaque, and for a blue that's nice to have. If you've seen my artwork, if you're a fan, I'm using a lot of blue. Just something about my eyes, it really does something for me. Yeah, that's it for the paint. And then up top here is my Liquitex ink. Now this is sort of a newer thing I've been doing. And I use the inks a lot for the underlayer, like the first bronze layer that you do on a painting. Sometimes I make it like a magenta. And then I do a lot of inks for glazing. And I feel like that for like oil painting, you do glazes and underpaintings a lot. I feel like that fills the role in the way I need it to as someone who prefers acrylic as a medium. I don't even know if you'd call it a preference. I just have a workflow, and this is the paint that gets me there. But yeah, using a lot of ink. I just sort of landed on this Liquitex. I like to keep the same brand, but I'm sure others are good. Like I have some of this Black Magic black ink. Yeah, so if you ever want to experiment, try those. Okay. Now we're going down. Got Poscas here. We got sponges. And ink brushes and sort of tattered brushes I use for texture. Stuff like this. All good for ink, like the natural bristles. Now, these are all brushes I'm using in the moment. And these are color pencils I use in the moment to keep them in hand's reach, because sometimes like the painting calls This is like my short-term memory area, basically. And all right. So we got some of these. These are just works in progress, and also things I like to, like drawings that aren't complete. I like to turn the palettes into paintings themselves, and either I'm using a thick paper, linen paper, or canvas pad. And I don't know, because there's something about acrylic where it dries so fast, right? And people always struggle with that. And so I decided I'd always see something in my palettes while working them, and I'd turn it into like a picture. Maybe not so much this one. This one's crazy. And I couldn't help it. And so, like, here's a little planet Earth thing with the crazy wing, like a dragon. And I just was like, part of my workflow, I like to make these into paintings themselves. And some are just unfinished, or there's a pattern. Maybe I'll get back to it, but it kind of creates this never-ending loop. And it's really fun to work that way. Okay. These are the fun paint. This is the golden gouache I was talking about. Actually haven't used it yet, but it's because I ran out of the other one, which is this one. This isn't Liquitex, it just looks like it, which is kind of funny. So these are like Chroma Shine acrylic paints, which are super cool, but you have to use them carefully because Chroma Shine has such a metallic thing, and you have to think of color theory. And this one I did recently, that's Chroma Shine on the top there. And it creates that like vibrant halo metallic thing. And then I use some of the acrylic ink to kind of shade it carefully because it's so transparent. And that's what I'm talking about with some of these effects. Yeah, I know he has a funny face, but it's supposed to be expressionistic. Yeah. These I just got. More Chroma Shine, like peacock feather, and I'm really intrigued by this, which is some insight into my artistic thinking as I'll get fixated. Another one is like seashells and abalone and that shininess, like how to paint that, but paint it with like how to give it its real shine instead of just like an imitation. So I bought these to try and do it. This is like perfect mermaid color. It's called Opal Magic, teal to pink. So you'll see that coming up. I'm using it a lot. And then this is like pure magic right here. This is mica powder, and it's just like pure rainbow. And you have to be careful though, because it's super fine and it might get everywhere. But I'm experimenting with this, and there's a painting I got going, and I just am loving this effect. Okay. This is where I put pencil shavings while I'm using them. That's fine. It's a seashell from Starbucks. Another seashell. And a little vase my wife made. And these are all my, besides that, that's all white ink, because I use that quite a bit. And these are just various pen brushes. This gold is okay. I never quite have gotten it to look how I want, but I like this brand, so I'm not going to get rid of it. This is a good black ink pen. And they're refillable, like with the Black Magic up there. And then I have two white ones, which are okay. I'm always on the hunt for a good white pen. Yeah, here's an example of me. Like, this is my palette, right? So I like to, it's turning into flowers. and this is a really nice like texture thing. Ooh, I might make that into its own video. These are my old dusty freaking water cups, and I'm kind of bad with brush health. I am and I'm not. I just like to keep them in active use, and I have this mat. It's actually just a tablecloth, which I use to wipe the brush off as I'm going. So as you could see, my whole palette system, I don't see a lot of people do this, but it works for me, and it's very active and engaged, but it's messy. All right. This is some palette knives, different textures, which I put into an old candle. I did it because it fit, and I'm OCD, and it fit perfect. You see that? And this thing, I keep like, if I'm using a brush, I keep it in there, or a knife, either or. But you know, these brushes here, these are like the main ones. These are cleaned and dry brushes, and then these more like in use, like wet brushes or drying or active. But basically small, medium, large, and I do keep the big round brushes a little separate just to keep their shape in this big one. And that's just for aesthetic. And I like the brushes next to me, but ironically, I'm not always pulling from there. If I'm looking for a brush, I do, but I keep them here if I'm actively using it. Here is like the same thing, same concept. Active paints, or paints that are like running so low, I don't know where else to put them. A lot of the U35, and I have like old Arteza paints too, but just right there. I like that glass. In general, I like all of my containers to be like natural material, like a glass or a ceramic, but these just fit so nicely, these plastic ones, which are also acquired in Japan. And I'm not even like trying to brag, it's just like that place is such a artist and stationery friendly place to live, that things just make sense, and I'm probably going to hold on to some of those supplies for a long time. And I have a light up there, a holder, and I have some miscellaneous supplies behind my painting area, but those I use so infrequently. If I use them more, I'll bring them to the front. All right, y'all. I think that's it. So, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it brought you some inspiration, or even ASMR if that's the reason you're watching. That's cool too. Let me know what type of videos you want to see next, what type of painting videos, and as always, please like and subscribe. Really means a lot. I'm almost at 100 subscribers, which is awesome. And all right, till next time.